investment at the end of the day is a risk. There's no guarantees in investment. Like people want to say like, oh, like this is the best investment, like going to the stock market or going to the housing market, like year over year, 7%, 10%. Like, oh, this is going better than this. At the end of the day, it's an educated guess. There are trends you can look at, different things you can study, but the market's going to do what the market's going to do, whether that's the housing market or the stock market or black market, whatever it is, it's going to do what it's going to do. So you need to save first, because what you're investing is not the same as saving, because that money can be gone in an instant or be reduced in an instant. So make sure that whatever you're investing, you can afford to lose. If you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same results. You have to do something different to get different results. So Albert Einstein said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. So you got to change things up. You got to do things differently. You can't do the same thing the same way all the time.
Turn this up, turn this up.
Your professional development is one of the keys to your career success. When you combine your desire to grow with actionable steps, your journey to success becomes an incredible reality.
Hi, I'm Paul Faronbi, aka IncrediPaul, and welcome to IncrediPaul Leadership, where we learn how to become the most incredible versions of ourselves by learning from each other. Today, actually, first off, if you're listening to this podcast, thank you so much for your support listening to the podcast. You support me empowering young professionals in STEM and entrepreneurship to become the most incredible versions of themselves. But you can go a little bit further. You can also watch the podcast on YouTube, see my facial expressions, which people, I guess it's hit or miss. A lot of people like it. They say it's pretty expressive. Maybe it's too much for you then. If it's too much for you, stick to the audio. I'm good with that. Regardless of how you're listening or watching this podcast, I really appreciate your support. For this podcast, I want to talk about something that I think most people would be interested in, and that is money. I know money can be a pretty controversial topic, but I want to talk more about managing money and the financial aspects of that. You may ask, why are you going to talk about money? What does this have to do with leadership? Are you even qualified to talk about money? Very good questions. So first one, why am I going to talk about money? Because money is how we are able to do everything. And I'm a person of faith, so there's something that's in the Bible that talks about the love of money being the root of all evil. And a lot of times people just say money's the root of all evil. Money in itself is not bad. And I want to set it off right off the bat. Money in itself is not bad. The love of money can be bad because that leads to greed and a lot of other things. But money in itself is not bad. Money is an amplifier. What does that mean? If you are a generous person when you have a little, you're still going to be generous when you have a lot. And here's the flip side that people don't think about. If you are a stingy person or a selfish person when you have a little, you're also going to be selfish and stingy when you have a lot. Yes, you may be able to give out some things and you can get better from it, but simply getting more money is not going to change your aspect. Money is just an amplifier. So if you get anything from this podcast, there's one thing you got right there. And really in the first couple minutes, that money is an amplifier. You're going to be the same person with or without money. Definitely more money helps as far as security and things like that. But money is just an amplifier. Also, it's been said, I know John Maxwell says this all the time, that the hardest person to lead is yourself. We can lead others, and oftentimes we lead others and tell others things that we're not doing ourselves. And so I try to be really intentional that if I'm saying something, that I'm also doing it. And if I'm not doing it, I'm also telling that person like, hey, this is what you could be doing. This is something I'm working on, because we are all working on something. We are humans. We're humans. What does that mean? Yeah, Paul, obviously we're humans. We are humans. We're fallible. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to fail. I talk about resilience and failure all the time. What matters is not how we fail or when we fail, because it's not an if, it's a when we fail. It doesn't matter when we fail. What matters is how we recover from failure, that resilience piece. And so this wasn't what I was going to focus on. I'll get back to it, but I want to hit on this because I think someone needs to hear this resilience piece, that really understanding that bad times will come, hard times will come. It may last longer than we want it to be, but what we do in those hard times, what we learn in those hard times, is what matters the most. I shared a short reel. I don't think I put it on TikTok. I think it was only on Reels on Instagram, about getting bitter versus getting better, and really understanding I think it's the expansion theory, that what you focus on grows. Throughout our lives, and as we're just living, doing different things, there's going to be positives and negative things that happen to us all the time. All the time. It can be very easy to focus on the negative, this problem-centric thinking, as Dr. Jason Selk and Dr. Ellen Reed so eloquently put in their book, Relentless Solution Focus. I talk about that book a lot because honestly, I think it's one of the books that had the most profound impact on my life over the last 5 years. So I'm a Maxwell Leadership certified trainer, speaker, and coach. I have read probably 30 of his books at this time. He has over 70, but probably read like almost 30 of his books. And he's a phenomenal teacher, a lot of stuff in leadership, personal growth, all those things. But really the foundation is understanding that we have problems. We need to be relentlessly solution focused and focus on improvement, not being the best. Well, you want to be the best, but not perfection. I know I remember when I had Dr. Ellen Reed on the podcast, I think it was episode 40, in the 40s, maybe 41, 42. I made a comment about being a recovering perfectionist. And she caught on that and said that it was good to show that I'm recovering a perfectionist, not that I am a perfectionist. That's a key thing. So even as I talk a little bit more about this finances, phrase it in the way of that you're learning more about your finances or you're getting better at it. And that switches the frame into like, oh, instead of saying I'm bad at my finances or I don't know how to manage things, you're like, I am learning to manage my finances. I am learning to do things that set me up for success in the future, and then actually do it. A lot of times with our words, we can control how we think. So you might say, you can't control how you think. Yes, there's going to be thoughts and things that come into your mind all the time. But we have the opportunity to, whether we resonate on that thought or if we understand, realize that thought, and then switch it to something else. Really focus on the positive and be realistic, but focus on the positive as far as where you're going. A lot of times, and I've fallen in that boat about being realistic. I'm not a naturally positive person. I can be positive, and I've been working on positivity, but naturally, just left to myself, I'm not a naturally positive person, which might surprise some people because I'm usually pretty positive when I come across people, and I'm always smiling. I am always smiling. But what people don't understand is that's something I've had to work at pretty much all my life. It's gotten better as I've got into college and working life, and I'm 30 now. But as a kid, or even like as adolescent, I had one of the worst attitudes at home. Like, just if you're curious, just ask my parents, or anyone who knows, ask my parents, ask my siblings. Not have the best attitude at times. It's something I had to work on. Even some minor anger issues. I would get angry about different things that didn't really matter at all. But that's something I've been working on. And yeah, sometimes it comes up, like it comes up in a moment and it's just anger in different things, and then it subsides, and I usually don't say much of anything, usually just anger in words, and then it just subsides. But that was something I had to work on as a little, like really just picture me, but a lot smaller, an angry little kid, and then just focusing on smiling more and being more positive. So it's been a constant thing. I've been working on it 20 plus years now. So it looks a lot better than it has before. So that was a little bit a tangent talking about resilience and positivity, relentless solution focus on improvement. But I think it's really critical because as I dive into this a little bit more, you have to understand that we're going to have our ups, we're going to have our downs. Everything is not always going to be up and up and up. And honestly, that will get boring after a while. Like you have to take the good with the bad, the positive with the negative. And that's what growth is. You're understanding where you are today is not where you were yesterday or last year. So one other quick thing before I dive deeper into the real topic of this podcast is with growth, a lot of times we think it happens overnight. It does not. It happens day by day, step by step, seemingly insignificant things that we do. John Maxwell has a really great quote. I tried to combine great and quote, and it was growth. He has a really great quote that says, "The secret to success is found in your daily routine, your daily actions." The secret to success is found in your daily actions. What does that mean, Paul? Think about the actions you take every day. Whether you choose to go to the gym or not, whether you choose to take the stairs or not, take the elevator or not, whether you choose to have that dessert after lunch, or whether you choose to pack a lunch versus buy a lunch. One thing that is critical to note is that as you have a diet or a food plan, exercise plan that you're following, one day is not going to break you. It is not one day that breaks you. Never one day that breaks you. It's a string of days, a string of weeks, a string of months. That's what breaks you. It is the consistency that you are walking in that leads to your success. So with that, let's dive a little bit deeper into this. So I will share about me as far as financially, so you understand that, hey, who is Paul? I don't talk about this a lot, but just understand where I'm at. So for myself, started working, I graduated in 2016, started working for Conagra. Back then, my salary was just $58,000. So I know for some people, it's like a lot. If you're in engineering, that's not a lot. $58,000 quickly bumped up to $72,000 when I went to General Mills. And that was just within a few months. So I was at Conagra just for 3 months. I've shared about it in the past, but long story short, wanted to work for General Mills. Conagra gave me an offer. I didn't get something back from General Mills until later on. And then the offer from General Mills gave me an immediate $14,000 increase in salary. From there, was at General Mills for a couple of years, and then I had some promotions, raises. I had one because of just a couple of years, and then Purina started off at $80,000. By the time I left Purina, was at $100,000, 6 figures. And so not at Purina anymore. Since then, have gone to Henkel, and then now at Mars Incorporated just over the last 2.5+ years. It's like 3 years now, really. So making 6 figures for basically 3 years now. And then besides that, I've been working on the business side of things. I would say like the business, still working on it because right now it's on the side and it's making money, not as much as I would like, but it's making money. And then I also have some nonprofit stuff I do. So that's one thing I've been learning, is that really to focus more. I know that if I focus more on the business side and IncrediPaul side, I can make more money. But at the same time, I'm really passionate about what I do with Nala STEM, the nonprofit. So really intentional, and like a lot of the stuff that comes my way for IncrediPaul is not something that I'm seeking out as much. Like I do reach out to you for the podcast and different things, and I share the stuff I do, but I'm not as intentional about doing stuff for pay. Because actually, at the end of the day, I really enjoy the stuff I do with IncrediPaul and Nala STEM, that I would do it completely for free. And so I know, like, you're listening to this, you're watching this. Like, if you're booking me, it's not going to be free. I mean, sometimes I do stuff for free, but for the most part, I don't. And when I do stuff for free, it's very strategic and to make sure it's a win-win. And other times I just do it to give back. But that's also why I've been doing a little bit less. I've been more focused on the podcast and then some stuff coming up with Nala STEM as well. So we are also doing some stuff to host a conference next spring. So a lot of stuff going on. My VP, Anna Chicasmosier, is leading the charge there as far as just getting all the stuff ready for the grant. A lot of stuff in the National Science Foundation. Super exciting. So all that to say, there's work to do on what I'm doing on the business side as far as being more intentional in the making money. As far as marketing and exposure, like I think I'm pretty good at that. But like the lead generation, some of the other stuff, I haven't focused on that because there's so many other things I've been learning in the new job with Mars and then the knowledge STEM side and IncrediPaul. I have all the systems built in place. Honestly, should just find someone to help me execute on it, and that would help. Tangent, all that to say, I have been making engineer salary, probably actually from what I've seen, above average salary for my age for not maybe my entire career, but probably the last 4 to 5 years of my career. So I've been six figures the last 3 years. And so what I've learned is just because you are making six figures doesn't mean that you're living a six-figure type of life, so to speak. You know, like the economy and all what's been going on, we've seen that things are way more expensive now than they've ever been. And so with that, things have changed, things just switched. And it's really important to know how to manage your finances and understand that I mentioned at the beginning that money is good. Money is an amplifier. Money cannot buy happiness, at least not sustain happiness. Money can definitely buy things that make you happy, and you can do things that make you happy. But a lot of things that have to do with happiness, money has nothing to do with them. And the perfect example of this is looking at people who have tons of money, millions of dollars, and they're still unhappy. So, and they say this all the time, but I think it's a mindset thing. Like what I've realized as I've grown and read books is that you can have the best process in the world, but if your mindset sucks, you're not going to get the result. Like you can say, okay, I need to do this, XYZ, have a game plan, strategy. But if at the back of your mind, you don't actually believe that's going to work, then it's not going to work. It's really not going to work. So focus on your mindset is the key. And so I think that goes back to what I was talking about on the semi-tangent with the relentless solution focus, is that you need to be focused on improvement and focus on what you can do a little bit better. James Clear said that really well, getting 1% better every day. Are you wondering what's next? Has everything you tried failed? Or maybe you just feel stuck? Then coaching might be right for you. The coaching relationship is a relationship totally centered on you. If you're tired of running on the hamster wheel of life and want to start to see results, reach out to IncrediPaul for help. So what are you waiting for? Go to IncrediPaul.org/coaching, IncrediPaul.org/coaching, or at I am IncrediPaul on all my socials. Or you can click the link in the bio for your free coaching session. I want to make sure you become the most incredible version of yourself. So some tangible things for what you need to do with your finances. So I mentioned how much money I make, but you're like, okay, you make all that money. Maybe you're in tons of debt. In addition, I make all that money. I also have over an 800 credit score. In addition, I have 2 houses as well. So I have a house in St. Louis that I'm renting out. I also have a house in Nashville as well. And so just from my credit mix and what I've been able to do and learn, so along with all the other stuff I do on the podcast, and I mentioned the nonprofit, working at Mars, also a landlord. I don't know what the politically correct term is, as well. So I have tenants as well. They are really great tenants, they really good communicators. I'm blessed with the tenants I have. But so a lot of stuff going on all the time. Like you don't always see it, even for people who know me, may or may not know that. So for those of you who listen to the podcast, you are the people that know maybe the most, not the most about me, but some things that other people may or may not know about me. So thank you for bearing with me. I keep getting distracted. But one thing you need to do as you go through and understand your finances, the first thing to do is understand how much money you're making and taking home. So I rattled off at the beginning the different how much money I was making, whether it's six figures now or when I was making as low as $58,000 out of college. You know how much you're actually taking home. So you have, and it's on your pay stub, and it might vary versus if you're hourly versus salary. If your salary is a lot much easier to do, it's going to be the same on every paycheck, unless you're salary that has salary that has overtime, which I didn't even know that was a thing. But with some, I think, supervisory positions that are on shift, they can also make overtime even though they're salary. So that was new to me. But it is important to know how much you're actually taking home, because you have what you're making, then you have your taxes, you have any contributions you're making for health benefits, 401k, HSA, FSA, all these things. What is the actual money that you are taking home every month? And that's what you make your budget from. I know I said the B word, I said budget. Budget, budget, budget. And as someone who rents a lot of cars, I'm not talking about the car rental company, I'm talking about understanding how much money you make and breaking it down, how much money you're actually going out. So this might be a terrifying experience to some of you, but you need to do it. If you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same results. You have to do something different to get different results. So what Albert Einstein said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. So you got to change things up. You got to do things differently. You can't do the same thing the same way all the time. You get the same results. So I said the B word. I said budget. How do you make a budget, Paul? I'm glad you asked. Understand what your expenses are currently. And so for some of you, you maybe already know what your expenses are, but I am not saying you just go off the top of your head and be like, oh yeah, Netflix here for $10. Oh, I spend about $100 on gas every week, or I spend this much on lunch every week. No, we're talking about actual expenses, like how much you're actually spending. And so this might take a little bit of time, because it may vary from month to month or week to week how much you're spending, but you need to pull out your bank statement, your credit card statement, and look through how much you're spending, where your finances going, have different buckets of things, whether it's your grocery bill, your utilities bill, your gym membership. The other thing that I talk about with budgets is that you should have a fun budget as well. Like, depending on where you are financially, maybe you can afford a fun budget, or your fun budget is going to be very small, but you can budget fun. I think a lot of times people hear the word budget and they're like, oh, I have a budget, I can't have any fun. No, what a budget means is that every dollar is accounted for. Every dollar is accounted for when you have a budget. So you know where your money is going. A lot of time, I've heard it said that people go to the end of the month and they run out of money. It's because they don't know where the money is going. They're spending money, swiping a credit card a lot of times because, I mean, let's face it, in the United States, we are in literally trillions of dollars of debt. So this whole culture is built on debt. And I think there's good ways to go about that and bad ways to go about that. And there's a whole thing between assets and liabilities, understanding what is truly an asset. Spoiler alert, your car is not an asset. Unless you are driving for Uber or Lyft or doing Turo to rent out cars, your car is not an asset. And even if you're doing that, you need to understand that you're going to have a lot of wear and tear in your car. And if you're using that as your primary, if you're using that as your daily drive, if you have only that as your car, like, it can cause, it's something you need to think about, because you can drive Uber, but then if you also, that's the only thing you do and you just have one car, you need to make sure your car is in good condition, because you would hate to, you're driving Uber and something happens with your car, and then you're out of car insurance, all this stuff. So there's a lot of things you can talk through and try to figure out what you need to do. But I said it before, the B word, budget. But in order to do that, you need to list out your expenses. The next step as you list out your expenses is understanding where you can save. So I start with saving first, because it's a really shocking statistic, but what I heard is that about 40% of six-figure earners have less than $2,000 in savings. 40%, six figures in their household. So I know sometimes it can be with whoever is in the household, like whatever money's coming in, six figures. I know by myself and my wife, we're well taken care of. We're just blessed to have that. But just understand that just because you're making a lot of money doesn't mean that you're saving it. So a lot of people cannot afford a $1,000 emergency. Like, that could break you. Think about that. Maybe you're listening to this and you can't afford a $1,000 emergency. And that's not to say that like life hasn't been hard and you've worked your way up to this point, and you may be hearing me say like you need to have $1,000 saved, and you're in the negative, overdrawing your checking account, all these different things. Take the first step. And the first step, like I mentioned, understanding how much you make, understanding how much you are spending, and then seeing where you can cut things down. But you want to have a long-term goal of saving and then investing. You want to save first, because investment at the end of the day is a risk. There's no guarantees in investment. Like, people want to say like, oh, like this is the best investment, like go in the stock market or go in the housing market, like year over year, 7%, 10%. Like, oh, this is going better than this. At the end of the day, it's an educated guess. There are trends you can look at, different things you can study, but the market's going to do what the market's going to do, whether that's the housing market or the stock market or black market, whatever it is, it's going to do what it's going to do. So you need to save first, because what you're investing is not the same as saving, because that money can be gone in an instant or be reduced in an instant. So make sure that whatever you're investing, you can afford to lose. So I've been talking about this. What other questions do you have about finances? Do you want me to have this as a series? Is this beneficial to you? Do you see the connection with leadership? Maybe I should make the connection. So kind of talked about it at the beginning, but in leadership, we have a vision. We also have a strategy. The vision in your leadership is, I know for myself, it's seeing my nonprofit specifically is impacting hundreds of thousands of students every year. Not overall, every year, hundreds of thousands of students are getting mentors. They're getting empowered. They're getting professional development. That's something I'm really passionate about. I don't think I've really shared publicly, but that's like a vision I have, is the impact that we're having. And the strategy, how are we going to get there? One, I realized from studying John Maxwell and being a Maxwell Leadership Certified trainer and speaker, is that one is too small a number to do anything great. If you have something that you can do by your own, it's probably too small. And it's probably something that maybe you want to do, but probably not what God has planned for you. If it's something that you can actually envision, it's probably too small. And so a lot of times things that come to mind, and maybe you're not a person of faith, so take that with a grain of salt, like whatever your passion or purpose or drive is, like whatever it is, think bigger. It is those people that are crazy enough to think they can change the world that actually change the world. If you went back and asked anyone who's ever done anything of substance, a lot of times they did not set out to do those things. They may have got a vision, and then they were focused and going towards it, but they didn't actually know what it would look like in the end. They had a picture, and sometimes the picture ends up exactly like that. Sometimes along the way, they come across things that end up being better than what they ever imagined as well. So really the key thing behind this episode is that lead in your finances. Lead yourself first well. What I'm really passionate about is giving, whether it's my time, money, talents, whatever it is. I want to be known as someone that gives someone the opportunity to become the most incredible version of themselves. Because I realize that not everyone wants to do that. Some people are happy with the life they have, the way they're living. And here's the thing that I want to make clear. It's not that I'm not happy with my current life, but it's more on the content side. I'm very content with the life I have. I think I've achieved more than, I wouldn't say majority, but achieved more than a lot of people may have at my age, whether it's on the salary side or the impact I've been able to make in STEM or start organizations, whether it's a for-profit or nonprofit. I mean, social media like totally distorts your reality on things because we think that all these people that are blowing up on TikTok and Instagram, like that's just a common thing. But you realize, excuse me, of like maybe the thousands of people potentially that are influencers, like a lot of them aren't making as much money as you think they are. And even if they are making a lot of money, there's just a small percentage. It's close to 8 billion people in the world. In the United States, what is it, like approaching 400 million people, and maybe a few thousand, maybe a couple thousand people are influencers and rich and famous. And that's not even talking about the business people who, there are a lot of people in business that are not even on social media that are making millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. I think the billionaires we all pretty much know, but I'm sure there's some secret billionaires too. They're not on social media. So I think it's really important to have the right perspective on things and have the right vision. And in order to do that, you need to manage your finances. Like, how many times do we see like different athletes that are giving tons of money at a very young age, which I think a lot of this is a disservice to them. I think some of the leagues have done better about this. You have tons of money, but then they blow it on different things, on cars, on experiences, whatever it is, and then they don't keep any of it, and then they're broke and they're selling their MVP rings or championship rings, all this stuff, because they did not understand how to manage their finances. So understand that first. The budget is a key piece. I can go into a whole thing just about credit, and I know someone that's very good at talking about credit, building credit. So try and see if I can have it on the podcast. Was trying to figure out when his time allows, so I can have him on the podcast. He can share more about that. But hopefully this podcast wasn't too all over the place for you. I know I kind of dove deeper into like the resilience side of things at the beginning, and then shared like a little bit more personal about like some of the stuff I make on the career side of things, and then working on stuff on the business side, which eventually it'll get bigger, it'll get better. I'm not too worried about it. I'm having so much fun with what I'm doing. Again, you connect with people, interview for the podcast. Like, I know for those of you listening that you enjoy the podcast, but I feel spoiled at the people I get to talk to. Even if it's people I already know, it's the deeper conversations that don't always come up when you're friends with someone. So it goes a little bit deeper. So having the podcast has definitely been a blessing. I really appreciate your support on the podcast. Definitely stay connected with me on my socials. The letter M, IncrediPaul, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Threads. I mean, it's on X or Twitter, but I don't really go there anymore. So you can connect there, but I think I put a link to something else. And then on LinkedIn, you can go to search IncrediPaul, see that page, all the different clips of past podcasts. But really, for the bottom of my heart, thankful for you taking the time out of your day. You could do so many other things Either you're watching this podcast or listening to podcasts. There's so many podcasts out there, but I would say podcasting is not saturated. It's still fairly new. And a lot of people, like, they'll start podcasting and they'll stop, and there's a lot of inconsistency. There's room in podcasting. So if you're interested in podcasting, definitely let me know. I would love to support you in that. But I hope you learned something about what you can do with the really basic step with the budget and how to go about doing it with your finances, and really being intentional, but focus on being relentlessly solution focused. If you do these things, you can truly be incredible. Thanks for listening.
Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time. And be incredible. Incredible.